All right, welcome in. So today's video, I am discussing the question, what is breach of contract? Now, received this question specifically as it comes from terminating the purchase contract when a buyer is engaged in purchasing a piece of real estate and chooses not to move forward with the purchase and does not have a contingency to terminate for. Okay, so we are specifically looking at it from that angle in this question. You're buying a property, you've entered into a purchase agreement, which is going to have many contingencies and many clauses in the contract. There's a lot of ways that you can legally terminate that contract. However, the question would be, I guess the question is, what is breach of contract? Breach of contract would be if you terminate the contract without cause, meaning all of the contingencies in the contract, you have met those contingencies, yet you are still choosing not to purchase the contract. Some of the major contingencies are things like financing contingency, appraisal contingency, inspection contingency, attorney approval clause. So if you get through your purchase and you've met all of these contingencies and you still choose not to buy the house or buy the property, then you may be in breach of contract. And what is the second part of that question would be, what are the repercussions of that? And that is the purpose of this question to begin with. Most people assume the repercussions are that you will lose your earnest money. And yes, that could be the case, but what you should know as a buyer is there could be additional repercussions. The seller has the right to sue the buyer for specific performance. So what that means is they would take you to court and force you to move forward with purchasing their property. Now, this is very rare, but it is a possibility, and you should be aware of that. They could also potentially sue you for other damages occurred along the way. Now, again, it would be very rare for that to happen because obviously the seller would have to hire an attorney, probably pay these costs out of pocket in order to force you to close on the property, and it would be a long and difficult process. And a lot of times, if you were to, as a buyer, also to get an attorney involved, you may find some reason in the contract that you could get out of it, and therefore it becomes very challenging for the seller to do. But you should be aware of the fact that it could happen. So you're not only at risk of losing the earnest money, but you could be at risk of a lawsuit. Now, all that being said, when you decide to terminate, we would present the seller with a mutual release form and offer them the earnest money. If they accept it and they execute that mutual release, then they are releasing you of your obligations, and therefore you're going to avoid future lawsuits to come. So if you are a seller and you don't want to give up the right to sue the buyer in the future, then you would not want to sign that mutual release. You would want to wait, have a conversation with an attorney, and figure out what your best course of action is. Now, as a buyer, I should highly recommend, and I would always highly recommend if you were ever in this situation, you must speak to a qualified real estate attorney about your options before choosing to terminate a contract when you are in breach of contract. So there you have it. Not the happiest part of a real estate purchase contract, but it is something important that you should be aware of if you choose to terminate a contract. There you have it. Talk to you next time.